Boom. Welcome back to the channel. In yesterday's video, we talked about Sword and Shield. Is Sword and Shield slowing down? And we answered the question with a yes. Booster box sales are and price movement is slowing down. However, there is some action happening in Sword and Shield elsewhere, and it's on the cheaper products. So we're going to go into that today. So sit back, relax, and welcome to PokeMarketLab. All right, folks, let's get started. We're going to go in order here, mostly in order. We're looking at ETBs today. There's some surprising things happening. I talked about some concepts yesterday, about that spillover effect where the water kind of like gravity in nature tries to find that low spot, tries to find the value. And it's just because it's cheaper, right? It's buying a $500 box of Fusion Strike, regardless of how good it is a hard pill to swallow, right? And not everyone can afford that. So what's happening here is we seem to see a lot of price action on ETBs finally moving. Many ETBs within Sword and Shield were heavily printed, especially in the later half of the era. So let's get into it. We're going to start with Rebel Clash today. Elite Trainer boxes very early in the Sword and Shield era. Again, we got to look at this massive, I don't want to say it shouldn't, it's not a massive movement of volume here. It's more than usual. This is an older box on a, what I would call pretty terrible set. But again, people are just kind of starting to pick away at these to get some exposure to some of these sets. This is the consensus we're going to get to in this video. They're trying to get some exposure to these sets without having to buy these expensive booster boxes. There's probably a certain level of FOMO going on in Sword and Shield. So again, not paying $300 for a booster box, but paying $70, $100, $120 for an ETB, getting some exposure to that set on items that are they're cheaper. It's just an easier pill to swallow. So you could get the entire era of Sword and Shield for a much more affordable price versus booster boxes, and capture some of that future upside potential without, spending a ton of capital. So on to the next one. This is Sword and Shield base booster box here. Again, see increase in volume here. Not massive for this box. There's not a ton of demand for some of these earlier ETBs, but I can guarantee you these are much rarer than the last half ETBs of the Sword and Shield era. So up 15% year over year. And again, you see much more recent price action there. Same thing, Darkness Ablaze, right? See, look, all that kind of mediocre price action at the beginning of the year. Then we see a lot more volume, and we're seeing a subsequent increase in price as the supply starts to dry up. And Darkness Ablaze, again, bottom tier set for Sword and Shield. Vivid Voltage, better in terms of quality, and we definitely see an uptick here as we start to get towards some of these other sets in Sword and Shield. Look at that increase in volume after December there. Less than 100 on TCG Player, 71% return last year. Again, this is like a C plus set for me. So this is again, there's some pretty substantial movement here, and this is extremely consistent. Battle styles, look at this, almost a 1-to-1. There's only 23 of these listed on TCG Player, so there is opportunity here. So $65, actually $53 for a market price. Let's see what our lowest listing is. $66. That's not terrible for an ETB if you like battle styles. Again, the option, what the market is doing, what people are doing, they're buying one of everything of the Sword and Shield era. So if that's you, if you want to do that, you're going to get priced out of some of these pretty quickly, because I think this is a pretty commonplace. So I'm surprised these are actually this cheap. That I would give that my blessing to jump in. Again, if you like battle styles, I don't think that's a terrible price to pay for an ETB and get some exposure. The booster boxes we're pushing up against 200. I don't know if they've hit there soon, but they will soon. The other battle styles, same thing, doing, you get 2 ETBs on that set. Chilling Rain, another one with 2 ETBs, pushing up soon towards that $100 price point, $75 on this ETB, only 22 listed. Look at that volume movement here. We're seeing some really big price action here. A 62% return last year. Let's look at 3 months here. So again, we can kind of see a big increase in volume here on these boxes. There are 2 of these listed in, so 2 different versions here. So there was a time, I think in November still, so just a few months ago, 4 or 5 months ago, where you could get these for about $40 on Target. I loaded up I knew Chilling Reign was it's one of the four horsemen, and that was going to be, a time for, there was a short time between then and when we were, they weren't going to sell them anymore. So I think they were still pretty, again, these were heavily printed. We saw these at Target, Walmart, everywhere, very heavily printed. But again, they've dried up. Same thing with the other listing here, only 32 listed, sitting at $75. So again, $75 for Chilling Reign. Look at the per pack price, and this is not coming down to per pack price. People are thinking this is much cheaper than $300 for a booster box for Chilling Reign, right? So the per pack price, you're probably going to pay more per pack on the ETB versus the booster box, but you're getting in for a much less cheaper price. Fusion Strike starting to go nuts. 200% return on the regular ETB. This is a regular ETB, folks. 200% return in the last year. Tons of volume. Average sell rate of 3 per day. Only 50 available. So this is gonna pump. I was surprised at how expensive these were. I mean, it's Fusion Strike. Maybe I shouldn't be, but doing really, really well. So again, if you're looking to pick up Fusion Strike, this is going to go higher. I mean, there's no reason it shouldn't go higher, but this is certainly a little expensive to pay for an ETB. This is a particularly good looking ETB. I just love the design on that. I love the colors. It's got Mew on there. So that is I think a great display piece. One of the better looking ETBs of the era. Brilliant Stars, another one that was just heavily printed. I think these were sold on, there was a deal in, I don't know if it was Black Friday. It might have been Black Friday from Target for like $20 each. So these were printed into the ground. So still, if you like Brilliant Stars, again, $68. A little expensive for an ETB, but not crazy. It's not the 120 that you're seeing on Fusion Strike. So again, it is a matter of time before these are gone. It's not a terrible way to go if you do not have exposure to the Sword and Shield era. If you like the set, if you want to get a little bit of every set within that era, there are worse ways to go. So this would be a good entry point to get in. Astral Radiance, another set. This is a solid set, solid B tier set. I think B minus I would call it, from the era. And again, same thing. We're seeing some real consistency. This is what I'm trying to show. This is happening on every single ETB. So I just wanted to point it out and see, this is where I think the money is starting to flow, right? Maybe not from a total spend, but people are starting to pay attention to the ETBs because, again, that money tries to find that lowest point, and these are certainly cheaper. Again, Astral Radiance boxes are starting to push up there. $68, a little pricey for an ETB, but again, I think you could get in. You could get a lot of exposure to, get exposure to a good chunk of the really good sets within Sword and Shield for $500 right now. And that's not going to be the case. I don't think that's going to be the case 6 months from now. This is where the money is starting to flow. Booster boxes are expensive. We actually look at the 1 year performance on Astral Radiance, 98%. It's actually outperformed on a percentage basis the Astral Radiance booster box, if that tells you anything. That tells me everything I need to know, that these are expensive. Over 200, gonna hit 250 here soon. Yeah, at 250 on the least expensive box here. So crazy to see, just some of the performance here on the ETBs. Lost Origin ETBs, massive 150% return last year, sorry. And these are $80, which is a little expensive, but I actually think I was expecting these to be about 100. I think the supply is probably what's keeping that price from going any further, but massive price action here back into even through December here. So some really, really good volume here. And again, I think booster box wise, I think it was right close there, but look at Silver Tempest. Silver Tempest ETBs, you could get on TikTok back in the fall for under $30 all day. And they're at $65 now. Look at that volume action and price action. 127% return on ETBs. This is how low they were. Under 30 here. I think with coupons, you could get them on TikTok for about $20. Crazy. 127% return. And I think that outperforms the booster box for sure for the last year. What we're also seeing, another concept I think that is happening in Sword and Shield, is we're starting to see some price action on some of the better Pokemon Center ETBs. Remember, these were not special in any way other than the fact of being called the Pokemon Center ETB and in some way, shape, or form having a different piece of art. I think box art really matters for these, and what's happening, I think, is that these are just becoming a de facto collector box in some way. Again, there's nothing special in it. It's got 2 more packs. But at this point, no one's caring about the pack price. It's special and rare. So these are much, much rarer than the regular ETBs. I don't know that they, I guess the big question is, were people opening these, or were people keeping them sealed because they knew they were going to be collector's item? It was still a premium, a per pack price premium over the regular ETBs. So I don't know. I'm curious if people were keeping them sealed or not. There certainly was no reason to open them versus the Pokemon, the current SV era Pokemon Center ETBs, where there's a promo in there, so there's a reason to open them to get that promo, right? There might be an option to keep that or sell it or make some money on it. So people, I think, are picking these up because it's a way of getting exposure to that set for cheaper than the booster box, and it's much rarer. In actuality, what's going to happen with the Pokemon Center ETBs from Sword and Shield is they're going to be much rarer than either the booster box or the ETB. So if you really want to go after what is going to be a cool item, which wasn't a cool item, but I think will be, this could be a way to go. Again, much cheaper than a $500 booster box, more expensive than the regular ETB, but not that more. Regular ETB is $120, it's $180. And again, I think that in some way, shape, or form, because of the rarity of these, it's going to be seen as a premium. Remember, as time goes on, the contents of the box, meaning the per pack price, and we're already seeing it, is not going to matter. Fusion Strike's a great set, but the box themselves, as time goes on, and we are marching towards that time, it's typically 4 to 5 years, where what's in it's not going to matter. It's the rarity of the box. The box becomes the collectible, and I think that's what's happening here. So could be a little, I don't want to say a play, but again, if you're not willing to pay $500 for the booster box, excuse me, if something around the $200 price point makes more sense to you and you want rarity, this is going to be rare. It is rare. So we're seeing that in a couple other sets too. Lost Origin, the booster box is not as good from an artwork standpoint as the Fusion Strike PC ETB. That is a beautiful design there with Mew again. So not as good on the Lost Origin, but again, I think we get the same thing happening. $150 box. There's only 23 listed on TCG Player. These are incredibly rare. And again, the box itself is becoming the collectible. And just looking at actual Lost Origin booster boxes here, up 113% in the last year. And the Pokemon Center ETB is up 130%. So the Pokemon Center ETB is outperforming the booster box. So what's going to happen is these are going to get to a certain price point and people are going to be like, oh, maybe I should just get the booster box. So you see how that money can just kind of bounce back and forth. So I think this has some room to grow. Again, if you want exposure to some of these sets, you could get both. You could get a Lost Origin Pokemon Center ETB and a Fusion Strike Pokemon Center ETB for the price of one Lost Origin booster box. So that's a lot of exposure for a collectible item versus the booster boxes, and I think that's the calculus that people are making. And I think in some way, shape, or form that makes a ton of sense. And I've said this before. I think long term down the road, people will want the ETB because the masses, the general population, does not open booster boxes. They open ETBs. They open single packs from their LGS or in a checkout lane in Target or Walmart. That's how most people get exposed randomly to the hobby. Okay. So if they're looking back and saying, you know what, I want a little piece of my childhood, or I want a little piece of the set I remember opening with my kids, there's a chance they go to the ETB, and there's definitely a chance they go to the Pokemon Center ETB because it's collectible. So maybe if they want a piece of that time period and they remember in their life, they get a Pokemon Center one because it's this collectible, this rare collectible that's out there. Just something to consider. So that's it for our video today. Yes, to answer the question, money is flowing downwards towards the ETBs. I can answer that question for sure. So we're not looking at volume. We didn't compare volume, but we're just looking at price action, looking at the volume increases we're seeing on ETBs and the percentage increases we've seen in the last year. I think that's where everyone is looking at now, which makes sense on a price standpoint. So that's it for this video. If you like what we're doing, of course, give us a like and subscribe. If you have any questions or thoughts on the video, leave a comment below. And with that, we will see you on the next one. PokeMarketLab out.